Hardest thing's getting started. Once you get your feet wet, it's it's only scary in the beginning, but you just have to work your way through it. Once you do that, it really is not a big deal. It's a numbers game. Keep the emotions out of it. If the numbers work, great. If not, move on to the next one. There's plenty of them. You just have to find them.
Hey everyone, it's Megan and Steve here with Hustling for Excellence, back with our interview series. Today we are here with Sue and Chris of Flippin Views. They're going to be talking to us today about real estate, which they have done for a number of years now, both a residential and commercial side. So guys, tell us how you got started and where you're at now.
Well, I used to be in construction, and I had a real estate agent that was a friend of mine. He actually owned a Remax branch, and he kept hiring me to fix these houses up. And then he was telling me he was buying them foreclosed, and I was actually going in and making a budget for him. And he would either, if the numbers made sense, he'd buy them, and then I would be the contractor, go in there and fix the house up, and he'd sell them. And then I got to the point, I'm like, hey, I want in on this. And this was in the early to mid 90s when nobody knew this stuff was going on.
Wow.
And the next thing you know, we're both going 50-50 on these houses, and we started really turning them out for a while. This was in like mid-Michigan. And it was a real good business. But then he decided he wanted to move to Nevada. So he took off. So I got my legs cut out from underneath me, because I didn't know how he was doing the houses. We were both making good money. I don't know where the houses were coming from. He was getting them from a bank.
He wasn't doing it really on the up and up, pretty much. So he had to move.
That's not the whole story, but
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. You know, it happens, right? With all business partners, you kind of gotta.
yeah.
You don't know, yeah.
You don't know, right? I mean, like you said, you were busy working the construction aspect. You know,
He was doing the
right
other stuff.
So
Yeah,
no, it
he's just
happens.
like-
we hear that a lot about business
Mhm.
partners kind of, because you get so focused in your area and you're doing your piece and he's doing his piece and
You
just
trust that
you
they're
trust,
doing
right?
what
You
they
have to
should
have
be
trust
doing,
them.
doing it
Yeah.
the right
That's
way.
why it's nice to be married, and you know.
Yeah, he would give me some addresses and go figure out rehab on this, and I'd give him the numbers if they made sense. Next thing I know, it's our house. And then
Wow.
he started saying, well, if you want to end on this deal, if you got 40,000, so we're buying these houses for this back in the early to mid 90s, we're buying them for like 80,000, and we're selling them for 150
That was
after we
yeah,
put 10 grand into them.
that's
And we're turning them in like 45 to 60 days.
okay. That's what I was going to ask you. What was that turn time? Because usually
Yeah.
that's something that a lot of newbies kind of get into real estate and like, oh, I can make this much money because they've seen it on TV.
Yeah.
Right.
And they don't realize
It's
all
not-
that
it's
goes
nothing
not
like
like
TV. No,
exactly.
I mean,
We'll talk about that a little bit later because I
Yeah.
think that
Right.
gives a lot of people a skewed view of how it works.
Mhm.
You know.
Right.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Majorly.
yeah. So I'll let you. So okay, you're getting them for like 70, putting 10 grand into them, selling them for 150, and that was kind of what you guys were doing. What you said, mid 90s.
Yeah, mid 90s.
Okay.
And I had just started another business, and we were doing so well at that. I was really considering either close. It was small enough where I could just close it up, because I was kind of like a 1.5 man band.
Right.
And I'm glad I didn't, because he didn't tell me he was moving. All of a sudden he's like, well, I'm moving to Nevada. See ya. I'm like, how are we do? Where did you find these houses? How'd you do that?
Don't leave me.
Yeah, don't leave me.
Yeah, right. So that brings up a great point because, there's a million real estate courses out there. We all hear about the gurus. I think TV's made it so popular, but you were doing this back in the day when really kind of no one really, I won't say no one knew about it, but there were those guys, especially in a lot of these small towns, wherever you're from. I know you said Michigan, we're from PA, but same thing. There were guys doing it, but it was just on a smaller scale. But so how'd you find the properties when he left? And he kind of got out of town, and what was next for you?
I kind of stopped doing it
Okay.
because I had no clue. And I always wanted to get back into it. but it's like I knew nobody. And I did have the other business, so I wasn't real aggressive on starting. And then
Connections are really important to have. You
Yeah.
really have to know. And you were at the time just starting your new business, the brick and mortar one that we have. And so I just was focused on that. And he's like,
Right.
well, I better feed this.
this is paying the bills, so I got the
Right.
attention. But yeah, there was a time we got back into it. And I did know some of the stuff, but like the key components as to like where to find the deals, it's the hardest part if you're starting up.
Right.
So that's what we really focused. And one thing, if you're starting a business like this, you have to find a mentor. And if it's even just real estate course, you got to learn as much as you can, and you have to keep the emotions out of it because all they are is running numbers. If the numbers make sense, you go move forward. If they don't, move on to the next deal.
One of Chris's mentors, who tell him what his big advice that has stuck with
Bob?
him. Bob Carey.
Well, he was trying to get me into a commercial building, and this was in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And he said to me, so he's showing me this building because I was actually, the other business got big enough where the building I was renting was too small. So I actually worked for this guy. He owned probably 150 commercial buildings.
Wow.
So when one of his, this is in Michigan, everything's automotive. So there's tons of that stuff around there.
Right.
So when somebody would move out, I would go into his building and I would give him a rehab cost, and I would go in there and fix the building up, because once a tenant moves out, you've got to get everything back up to the present codes.
Right.
So it worked out great for him because he knew if I went in there and fixed his building, he wasn't gonna have any problems with the city. And this guy caused enough of his own problems, but that's a different story.
That's another quote.
So, I charged him a pretty penny, but he knew once I was done, he'd just pay me, and he knew he'd get the C of O, so the new tenants could move in right away. But going back to what he said to me, that really stuck, and I have heard this from a couple other people. So he's showing me this building, and he says, I'll sell you this building for $1.2 million. And I'm just like,
Sure.
those are huge numbers to me at the time.
Right.
And he says, what's wrong? He goes, you got two renters, so they're renting out 60% of it. If you find another renter for here, I'll hold the paper back on the building, so you give me like 30,000 down and make payments. And I'm like, and he says, what's the matter? And I go, that's a lot of money. He says, they're just numbers, son. They're just zeros.
Zeros.
He goes,
Some
you can
more
crash a
zeros
little,
after that.
you can crash a little or you can crash big. And I just, because of my age, I didn't pursue that building, which that may have been one of the mistakes I made. I don't know.
Right.
I did end up renting something else at the time. But that really resonated with me, because I've heard that from a couple other people now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Just zeros. I mean, but I think first time you see
It's easy to say.
Yeah,
Right.
It's easy to say. The first time you see them as well, you're like,
When you're not used to playing in the big leagues,
yep.
it's a whole
Right.
different story.
Yeah.
You're like, okay,
Yes.
maybe it's just zeros, but
Yeah.
it can be scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's something you work it up to. You can't just some people may be able to, but your first deal is always your hardest, because it's very hard to fund them. People don't trust you because you're new.
Right.
Right.
But you start building up your own capital, and then you get to the point where you can fund some of your own deals. And it's like a snowball. The more you do, the faster it grows. And then we had a bunch of rentals in Michigan, and we got to the point where we were self-funded on a lot of them.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and as far as Bob, that was an awesome gesture for him, because he could have made a ton of money with that,
Yeah,
and he didn't, because you're not.
I was scared.
He was afraid.
Bottom
of the
line is I was
zeros,
scared of it,
and
and that's not the way to be.
you have
Yeah.
to kind of either
Yeah,
you go
that-
for it or you don't.
Right. That's I definitely agree with that. I mean, there's just times that's out of your comfort zone, right? That's something you were kind of working down here at these numbers, and even though he was doing that and making it work, and he gave you a chance to be part of the team, so to say, you're still like, yeah. But it's you said a lot of interesting stuff, and there's a lot of things that you hit on. So Sue talked about connections, and I find that to be so true. Just to be in the conversation with people and understand what they're doing and how they're doing. Just like you said, he was going to hold the paper. Well, for someone who's not a real estate investor, what does that mean? What does that? I mean, we kind of understand that, but for your, to explain it to your audience, someone who's brand new, I love it when someone says, hey, they'll carry the note or they'll do those type of things. So, So do you mind just kind of breaking that down simple terms for somebody who may be first time saying, hey, I want to get into real estate. I want to follow Flippin' Views because, we know you're real people and you're doing this different parts of the country. How do you explain that to someone?
So holding paper is basically just holding the mortgage. So he owned the building free and clear. So he's actually going to hold the financing for me on it. So I don't have to go to the bank and qualify that kind of stuff. He's
banking it.
He's banking. He's being my bank.
Right. Okay. I think that's probably the best way to say it. Right. I mean, because it just makes things so much more, it just smoother, right? Seamless almost in a lot of ways. And you really had a nice advantage too. You were already in these properties fixing them.
So he knew
they were up to code, because that's another thing that we see residential wise with people, like when we go look at homes, and I'm like, man, to bring some of this stuff up to code, especially older towns, small town
Old
Pennsylvania,
houses.
right? And once you touch something, you're responsible for it, right? So you pull that sheetrock down and you see wiring that's all jacked up. Hey, it's on you now to bring it up to code. And
unfortunately,
a lot of these old houses have knob and beam in them.
Yeah, knob and tube.
You have knob and tube, and the second you pull a wall open, that's your baby.
Yeah.
And to tell you the truth, a lot of times we check our houses that we do buy, because a lot of them are 100 years old, and they'll have asbestos, they'll have leaky basements, foundation issues, and a lot of times we just budget that in, because I don't want to sell a house to somebody and have the wiring start fire in a year.
Yeah.
So we've been there. It's the first house we ever bought, as a married couple, was actually like a double block or side by side, depending on where you are in the country and what you call it. But it was, to be our home, but have, the tenant on the other side to pay our rent. And 100-year-old home, we ran into a lot of problems.
Yeah. It's bad when you bring in a lot of these homes in these small areas were family, mom and dad lived on one side, kids lived on the other. So they used to do a lot of nutty stuff with sharing electrical, and, we'd turn on the lights in one side and would turn on the basement in the other. So it was
the garbage disposal.
We just finished a duplex 2 years ago, and I had to have an electrician come in and rewire half the house, because you turn something on and the laundry room lights would go on, then the kitchen lights would shut off, the fan would go on, and turn the bathroom on in the bedroom.
But it gets crazy, but those are the good stories. Those are the stories that people need to understand, because you said a very key thing, you budget for it, because a lot of these shows you see, I mean, they make it look so easy. We're just going to come in. They just start knocking down walls. I'm like, it doesn't really work that way. There's load bearing walls. You need permits. They never talk about the permitting process. There's a lot of stuff that happens before you even get there. And you guys have seen that millions of times, but
and I had a contractor's license, so I can usually go up in the attic and just see the way the structure beams are going, and I can come down and I can tell where load bearing walls are. Sue will say, maybe we should pull this wall, and I'll just go take a look, and that one can come out no problem. This one we're gonna have to put a header in. It's just, that's good to have if you're just looking to do your rehab budget. The other thing I always do is, I usually, if I come up with a budget, I'll use a simple number, 10,000. I'll usually put an extra 10 or 15% on it, depending on the age of the house.
Especially,
you never know when you're going to pop open a wall, and one we just finished.
More problems.
Well, the gas line, we came in, we looked at it, and we could smell gas in the basement. So we called Semco, and they shut the gas off because it was vacant. Turns out whoever put the gas lines in used the wrong kind of pipe dope. So all the gas lines were leaking. So I had to rip them all out and put all new stuff in, which the guy's like, if I'm going to take these apart, let's just put new pipe in here. So that was, I think it was $500. that,
sometimes you want to do things yourself, and some things you just get a professional to do. It's, because it's just going to cost you more money because
Yeah.
you're, oh, here's this and that, and then it just becomes a big snowball, and
yeah.
there's no fire to bring it.
Your time,
These guys
right? You only have so much time. I mean, if depending on if you're out, looking for other deals and what you're doing, that, like Meg was saying, our first property, every weekend it was like, hey, we're doing the rehab thing, so we're doing everything ourselves, doing sheetrock, doing this, and we're not professionals, I mean, we're kind of have a little bit of experience, but yeah, so all that time that we had, those early years in the marriage were kind of like spent pounding, doing hammers and nails and painting and all kinds of stuff that, to your point, sometimes it's just better to get a professional in there. They have all the tools,
for sure.
They're in there, it's quick and it's done right, and they're on the hook as far as, they're insured and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So,
and another, I want to interject quickly. Another expense that you have to really remember is the prices of the permits and all of that, and the cost of the permits. I mean, they vary depending on where you're at, city, state, and all of that. And you have to also, don't forget about the insurance that you have to have on the house while you have it. You have to have the utilities, everything that a homeowner, you're that homeowner, you own that home. And so you have to have insurance, you pay your taxes, and and you have to make sure that the neighborhood is okay, because you want to make sure that the stuff that you leave in the house is not going to be,
it'll be there tomorrow.
missing.
Yep. Nope. Go ahead. Tell
I do have
story.
So we only lived in our rental about a little less than a year and a half before we ended up moving, and we hired a property manager because that was what our town required. Someone must be within 20 miles, and we were 80 plus miles away. And it just so happened that one side was vacated, and we had a tenant that was supposed to be moving into the other side like within 2 days, and we get a call the day before. Someone from the property manager, someone had broken into the house, and this was back when copper was real high, and they were cutting copper pipes out of houses. Like they left the
they shut the water off at least.
Thank God they shut the water
that's
off.
Nice.
God bless
they cut out as many copper pipes as they could. They even left behind the little copper pipe tool that you used to cut them. They actually left the cutter. But it was like,
Well, I figure you wouldn't be needing it.
Well, so then that was all of a sudden like, let's go to PEX, right? So let's go to PEX too.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so we see like those are the type of things that I don't think people get, right? Because you don't see that on the show. Like, hey, there's not going to be, and this wasn't a bad neighborhood. This is a blue collar neighborhood.
But it was one of those things where you knew someone must have been paying attention for them to hit it at just the right time. We never had a problem before or after. It was just that couple days where it was completely unoccupied.
They were watching.
Somebody was watching.
Exactly.
Yeah. I do have one real quick story that I'll tell you that really taught us. So one of the houses we were doing needed all new drywall. So we tore it out, fixed what plumbing needed to be fixed. Some of the electrical, updated it. I'm going to drywall this myself. Took me over 3 weeks. The next house we did that, I hired, these guys wanted $7,000. They came in there in 4 hours. The whole house was drywall.
Yeah.
Time is money.
Just saved me 3 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, I guess those are the lessons you learn, right? I mean, because in the beginning you just think, oh, I'm going to save a couple bucks. I'll do it myself. And then just buying all the tools, I'm like, all this stuff, everything's, I'm like, and then like you said, same thing. We had a guy come in they did the roof in like less often one day. And I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I climbing up here trying to do these things? Going to end up getting hurt or something. And it's like, so yeah, to your point, absolutely agree. But I think that's something that it's like you try to tell folks that, but it's one of those lessons you almost have to learn yourself, right? Like,
yes. I think you have to do that yourself. I think you have to start doing it like that. And then you realize, because you put the sweat equity into it and you're like, this is awesome. But I just sweat. Like, I mean, you're not wearing makeup when you're doing that. You're not, your hair is like, I mean, we go out
unless you consider paint and makeup, right?
It's like it's melting off of my face, and forget it. And we'd go to lunch, and here we were like just cleaning all this stuff. It was nasty.
No,
We still do some of our demos, but that's it.
Yeah, no, we'd be working on a house and I'd be going down, running down to the local Lowe's or Home Depot to grab something that we needed. And now I'm like, paint on me, dirt, dust. And I'm like,
where'd this chick come from, right?
Right, yeah. And then you run into somebody that you went to high school with and you're like,
I'm like, please don't talk to me right now.
So it's funny that we kind of have some experiences with it, but you guys obviously, doing it all the time. So now you mentioned also some commercial. So residential, commercial, are you leaning more commercial properties? Do you find that to be just better for you as far as, the income, the management? I know a lot of new folks aren't going to start there, but I know, it seems that's where everybody wants to get. That's the promised land, right? Those triple net leases.
Right.
That's where you want to get. So
tell us maybe about one of your first deals. I know you mentioned the one that you didn't take with with the 1.2, but how about maybe something, if you remember your first one or two deals that you kind of did, and how big were they? Were they large apartment buildings, or were they a mixed use, or kind of what were they about?
There was a fourplex apartment complex that we got into.
Okay.
And here's the problem. So there's pros and cons when you start getting into that.
Right.
It was big enough so now you got 4 doors paying rent. So one person moves out, you still got 3 people paying rent. Problem is, it doesn't generate enough money to get a property manager, so you're still now you got a bigger place you're taking care of, fixing toilets. So one thing we did, if people had an issue, we kind of was a little bit on the honor system, so you got to trust your tenants. Go ahead and fix it, and we'll just take it off the rent. That way, we're not getting phone calls at 4 a.m, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Because if you've got rentals and there's single family homes, that happens unless you get a property manager.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to get a property manager just on one property.
Yep. Yeah, that was the one thing we kind of noticed in the beginning too. For us, it was required by the town's code that, hey, if you live outside of a certain radius, and yeah, I mean, obviously that's coming off the top. You're like, man, this doesn't seem as good of a deal now that they're taking for each unit, not just the property, but for each unit there was a fee, and I was like, wow, this is, and plus the town started doing an inspection, right? So they were charging $25 a unit for an inspection fee, and then you had the property manager. So all of a sudden, like, all that money that we used to get, it's like, wait, this isn't that good of a deal now. So yeah, so that's a good point with 4.
Yeah, and taxes always go up after you purchase something too. So don't look at the taxes, what the taxes were then, because it's gonna be
they're gonna go up.
But what were you finished with that? Or?
Yeah, I was kind of finished with that.
Okay, so
we don't own that anymore. We sold it.
I know, because I wanted to say something, now I can't remember.
We sold that the 4 unit.
Okay.
Yeah, we did sell it. Oh, but the new property that we may be getting into is a pretty large number.
So
zeros wise.
Yeah. And there's partners in it because it's too big for us to do by ourselves.
Have you ever done anything with partners before like this, or is this the first time?
This is gonna be the first time with partners.
Okay.
A deal like this you can't do on your own.
Okay.
It's actually somebody that has been doing it for a long time, and he's been very successful, and so we've kind of befriended him, and we're like, okay, we're jumping in.
You're jumping in.
So that, and
he made the same comment about the zeros.
Exactly.
So
I'm like, I'm not
gonna make that.
Can't say no again.
I'm not shying away a second time.
Okay, cool. So I know you probably, since it's still kind of in the process, you can't give us any too many specifics. Right. But could you kind of give us an idea of maybe the type of property, the size? Is it a commercial property? Is it a condo type of deal? Is it? And can you give us anything or?
There's about. It's an apartment complex. There's about 1,400 doors on it.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So see, that's a number that I get that little.
Like, who?
Yeah.
It's scary, but I'm just like, we're not backing away from this. If we can do it, we're going to do it.
Wow, that is so that's to us that's impressive, right? Like I mean, because you were just talking about a 4-unit deal, and now you just said 1,400.
1,400.
Did you have anything in between? Like at one point, did you go from like 4 units to 20 or 30 or any 100 units, or like where was? I mean, this is a huge jump, like
Yeah.
it's
Right.
next level stuff.
We were buying houses and flipping them. We were buying
Mhm.
some and saving them. We were buying them, land contracting them off. Yeah,
Okay.
renting some of them. Had some duplexes, but the fourplex was like the biggest deal we did.
Okay. Wow.
So, yeah, but we're not managing it. So
Right.
we're just kind of like being the real estate investors. This is when
Right.
you start to invest because, we're still flipping. I mean, COVID kind of, Michigan, it was
Yeah.
shut down, forget it.
Our
So-
last house took us almost 6 months to do, and it should have been a
Oh wow.
12
Yeah.
or 14 week. And it was
That's
nothing we could do about it.
yeah.
Because then nobody could get parts. You couldn't, and everybody was
Mhm.
backed up because
Right.
everything was closed.
Mm.
Couldn't get
So
siding.
you couldn't, and you couldn't get anybody to work either.
That's
You're
interesting
getting
that you
money
said that. I mean, that's a good point. We were just talking about the cost of lumber and materials. So yeah, I didn't even
Oh,
think
yeah.
about the. I mean, you buy these houses and think you're going to get it done like you used to, right, in 45 to 60 days, and now it's 6 months. So you're all those holding costs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know, how much you're into this, but I know even currently still, closings are pushed back because you can't get inspectors out there. You can't get people to, evaluate the value of the property, and
Right.
everything is just getting pushed back further and further and further.
Wow.
That's not in Arizona though, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah,
But
not
That's
here.
great.
But that house, we got it for 30,
30,
and we
I think.
32, and then we put like 30 to 35 into it, and we sold it for 105. But the problem is, it took us 6 months
Right.
because
Mhm.
we couldn't get contractors, and then HUD, because of who qualifies to buy a house like that, they're going to have to go through HUD in that they're
Yeah.
lower middle income.
Right.
So HUD was backed up. Closings were always at least 45 days,
Wow.
and
See,
that
that's-
just I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get people that buy remods in Port Huron, Michigan, buy it with cash.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
They're there because it's
Right.
their community that, and these houses are gorgeous. They're like 100 years old, but
right, they're just old, but
and
Right.
we
They just need a little TLC.
I mean, it's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
We see like we always like taking little road trips around, and you see that type of stuff happening all across the country in little pockets of places. But yeah, I think
Right.
that's great. You mentioned some of that stuff because that's the stuff. The first time you get into the real estate game, you just think it's all going to be roses, and it's we're going to go in, we're going to demo this in a day, and
look, we could pick this carpet, pick this out. Oh, these
all that stuff.
windows.
Yeah, so that's interesting because that's the idea here. Want to really talk to we know your channel Flippin' Views. You're kind of discussing all the gamut of real estate. And you obviously have a ton of experience because residential, commercial. You've done contracting, so you kind of done a whole bunch. I mean, have either of you been real estate agents or any of that? I'm just kind of curious.
I was.
Okay.
I was. Excuse me, and it was just easier to not have to pay for all of that extra stuff, and it was just I didn't need it,
Okay.
yeah,
because
it's the same thing. It's a time as money thing.
Mm-hmm.
She's better off she does a lot of the research.
Okay.
Finds the houses, run numbers. That's what she does a lot of. So we partnered up, and you got to go through a lot until you find a couple good ones. You find a couple good agents. They'll show you pocket deals or put, this house is distressed. Hey, go look at it real quick. I'll give you the key. I'll meet you over there.
tell them what a pocket deal is.
Pocket listing it's somebody like we did a pocket listing on our house, and so it's a house that somebody wants to sell, but it's not actually listed.
It's not
Mhm.
written up yet.
Or they'll know somebody wants to potentially get rid of a house. So they'll say, why don't you go look at it and see what you guys think it's worth, and they'll try and work a deal out before it hits the MLS.
So
Right.
then you just
Right.
Okay.
they'll charge you like 1% instead of 3
Yeah.
or 6.
Or,
Right.
yeah, they'll charge the seller, but then we'll automatically give them the listing.
Right.
So you
Okay.
get the listing, they'll charge us 1%, but then there's gonna be 3 if another agent brings the buyer. So now we're at 4 instead of 6. But the thing is, if you build good rapport with these agents, they're always looking out for you, taking care of you. Hey, I'll go open the door so the carpet guy can get in there because we're doing something else, whatever it is.
Nice. Yeah,
We have a lot of people.
Right.
that's great.
And right now, you'll be seeing on our channel, our YouTube channel, more. We've been doing videos of, because we're in Scottsdale, Arizona right now, and
Mhm.
we're looking, the market here is
Crazy.
crazy. I mean, the houses are listed for maybe a day. I mean, we bought this house in a day and we had to go over asking. Everybody's paying over asking, and they're
Right.
not
Mhm.
inexpensive homes either. And, you know, like the house that we had in Michigan, that was, it would have sold probably 3 times what it sells in what it sold in Michigan for here.
Yeah.
And I mean, right on the river and everything, but the market here is crazy. So what we're doing is we're walking through houses
Okay.
and
That's how you learn the market.
right. So that's kind of what we're teaching now is we'll walk through and we'll look and see, you know, what we look for in a
Mhm.
house to either, I mean, this will help people who are looking for their first house
Mhm.
for, you know, maybe an investment property or maybe a fixer upper. And so we have a few videos that are going to be popping up shortly. We just have to get,
Yeah, they're not on yet. We're
Okay.
editing.
Yeah, we're definitely
And
looking
it's-
forward to
Yeah.
that because, again, this is what we're trying to really focus towards those, you know, the people, we've talked a lot about mindset, but now we're moving into, okay, we got the right mindset. Now, how do we get into the, you know, make that income, especially the passive income so we can enjoy life, right?
exactly.
And that's why we want to talk to you guys because we understand, you know, you understand that you're doing that, you're living that life. You have
We've gone about real estate the wrong
Yeah.
way. So we know how to do it the right
Right.
way.
So I love the fact
Yeah.
you're going to walk through the homes. Like walking through the homes is key because you know what to look for and finding
We
those
do it
deals.
We do it every weekend.
That's
We'll
great.
pick open houses and we'll walk through them. We've got a handful of agents that they're still getting their feet wet with us, but like we'll always wear our shirts so we look professional. Just to go back, one thing you kind of want to do, like in our area in Michigan that we're in, we always wear our shirts. Our vehicles have our logos on them. So
Okay.
we pull into a neighborhood and they see we're rehabbing an old house.
They love us.
They love us. And then
Right.
like one guy will go, hey,
You're not
this guy
renting it.
across the street, I know who owns it. And the thing's been sitting there vacant for years. You want me to call him? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Here's my card.
So they're doing all
it's
that work for you.
Yeah.
Then you
and
turn into a celebrity, so to
because
speak.
they don't want, well, the renters that were in there before were just horrible.
Right.
I mean, they didn't take care of the house because most renters really don't.
Right.
So the last house that we did during COVID, we just went and the guys, all the neighbors were coming around going, are you guys renting it? Are you guys gonna rent it out? We're like, no, we're selling it. And they're like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much, because it's the, you know, it was just trashed. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
know,
And you know,
Go ahead.
it's because we live in an area like that where probably half the population are renting, and you know, some will take care and some will not. But it's we get
Right.
excited whenever we see a house, you know, purchased by like a contractor or someone, they fix it up and then sell it, because you know what? That also helps our value in our house when it's time for us to sell.
helps you,
exactly.
yeah.
Yes,
And
exactly.
they see our vehicles in the neighborhood fixing other houses. So they're just like,
Mhm.
there are those guys, they're fixing up the houses around here and
Yeah.
And they
they'll
know
see
our
us
name.
they'll see us in a restaurant. Hey, you guys are doing a great job in that house on 15th. You know,
Yeah.
that's
But yes,
nice
And
to
they'll,
hear.
they'll call you if somebody's in the driveway
Right.
or somebody's walking around. So you have to get to know the neighbors too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Because we
most of the
have to
neighbors
balance
are,
that.
yeah.
You know, if
You're
you're
helping
especially
them.
if you're concentrating in an area, not
Yeah.
only is it helping them, but as you rehab and sell more in that area, future houses that you're buying and rehabbing in that area, you've already increased the value by others that
Right.
you've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last one, it was by far the ugliest house in the neighborhood. I even had the EBGBs when we were closing on it. I'm like, this is,
I wouldn't go in the basement.
well, yeah.
I
But
wouldn't.
Not
when
sure
we
what
were
you're gonna
done, it was the
find.
nicest house on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, well, I could smell the gas right when we first walked in.
Right.
I
Wow.
have that gas smell nose, you know, the sniffing gas. Some people can smell it right away and some people don't. And I walked right into that house and I'm like, there's a gas leak here. And, you know, the agent that we're with, who's friends of ours, she's like, I don't smell anything. Chris is like, I don't smell anything. And I'm like, we need to get somebody out here. So I called and lo and behold, there's a gas leak.
Well, the basement leaked, so it was overpowering the gas smell.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I actually shut the valve off coming into the house for the gas and called the gas company. And they're like, all the pipe dopes, the wrong kind, and these are all leaking a little bit. So,
For a
like
lot
I
of
said, I
money.
just told the plumber, change it out. And he said, for another $70, I could change the pipe too, the black pipe. I'm like, just fix
Do
it,
it.
put the right
Yep.
stuff in there and we're
Yep.
done.
And that's
Because
good to hear.
we were redoing the kitchen, so I had to have a gas line run anyway to where the stove was
Right.
going to be in the future. And I'm like, just change it all out,
Yep.
put the right stuff in there.
Yeah.
That's great that you do that because like, as you said, you know, we had a house and there were certain things that we could do, but then we would run into problems like, okay, no, we know this is beyond, you know, our skill level. Let's get someone in here to do it correctly. But there's so many people that, you know, even before we had bought that house, we were looking at single family homes and this one inspector got to be like, really, we would always call him because he'd be like, okay, you see this here? This was done by someone who was flipping just to do it as cheaply as they could.
Yeah.
In and out. They didn't do this correctly. They didn't do that correctly. He's like, this over here in the basement, that's a sign that something else is wrong.
So many, so many people just don't take it, like, somebody's gonna be living there with, you know, a
Right.
baby or,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, I mean, you have to do up to code. And if you need to tear down a wall, you better know it before you even get in there.
Yep.
Because,
Yeah, the last thing I want to do is cheap out on something and then find out there was a fire.
yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the things we try and do is make sure our houses is put better stuff in there. We don't put the best, but we don't buy the cheapest stuff either.
Yeah.
We put good stuff in there that looks really nice. And, you know, you build a reputation on that because I'll tell you, bad news travels faster than good news any day.
Yeah. That's a
So-
really good point. That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, like we kind of brand ourselves and people know those guys fixed all these houses around here and they're doing that one. So you already got the mindset that it's probably going to be in good shape when we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I would imagine, I bet that as the neighbors see this, they know someone they want to buy the house. They're already like, hey, this company is fixing it. They're going to do an awesome
Right.
job. You need to see this house as soon as
Yeah.
it lists.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
these
Yes.
guys did those houses and they all love their houses and
And
they're over there
sometimes
doing
before
those.
we even list them, before
Yeah.
that, I mean, they'll
That's
just
great.
get offers before that, which is incredible in Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, I know, like I said, so what would you say, like, I guess if you had to give advice to, you know, a brand new real estate investor, someone maybe who hasn't invested, what's kind of those first one or two steps you would have them do? You know, is it go out and just look at properties to get an idea of what's out there? Is it, you know, understand what their budget is, or kind of start us off if we're, you know, somebody's watching this show, going to be watching your series on Flippin' Views. Like, you know, is it just, where do we go? Where do we start?
The very first thing is you gotta know your market,
Okay.
know the neighborhood. And if you go on, I think it's Zillow, one of them will actually show you crime rates. So you want to know your crime rates, you want to know the school, the value of the schools if they're, and then probably the demographic of how much the average income is.
Okay.
So you're going to get a kind of a feel of what they sell for. So you can look at sold houses, divide that into price per square foot, so you kind of know what the house value is. Secondly, you want to start just looking at houses, trying to figure out what it's going to cost to fix them up. And this is all stuff you got to pick up.
Right.
So the toughest thing's starting. So the best thing I could say is educate yourself as well as you can. Befriend some real estate agents. Make sure they know you're serious.
Also, I think that it's very important to check the records for the house. Because you can see if the person is in trouble or if it's in collections, or if it's in like,
Like a pre-foreclosure
in a
or-
like
Yeah.
like if it's in an estate, as
Okay.
far as,
Okay.
because then you have to deal with like maybe 5 kids that are selling
Oh,
this.
okay.
So,
Gotcha.
either
That-
you
that
want,
makes sense.
so you have to work just everything. You just have to really be educated in the smallest things. You just have to just write it down and make sure you check off your checklist, because I mean, just like taxes, make sure
Yeah,
you look at
we've
what the
got
taxes are
notebook after notebook every time we go
every
out.
time. And and you have to get rid of the stuff, you put it on your computer, get rid of it, get rid of the paperwork if it's not a good deal, and just follow up with it. If you see it listed, or if you get somebody like a pocket listing, just follow up and see if they sold it, if they changed their mind, just kind of be there,
Mhm.
and just
Okay.
keep in contact with those people, and make sure a lot of agents, because the more people the more people you have looking and actually working for you for a very good price.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and
That's
then,
some
like
good
I said,
advice.
educate yourself as well as you can.
And you'll get a lot of information from our YouTube channel.
Awesome. Yeah. We're looking
It's
forward
coming.
to it.
It's coming slowly, but it's coming. We've been filming a lot.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we're looking forward to, especially I think for us, when we got started, one of the toughest parts for us was kind of contractors, understanding, what they're
Yeah.
going to do. Are they charging me a fair rate? Does it meet code? Like what's, all those type of things. Cause I don't know, right? I'm assuming this guy's coming in and going to trying to explain to him, hey, this is a rental. I don't want to pay top dollar on everything. I don't want to, get marble countertops. I just, it's like,
Right.
but I don't want the
make
worst.
it
I
look
want
nice.
everything safe because, like you said, someone's living in this house. But so that was kind of a challenge for us, I think, in the beginning, getting those contractors.
We went through a few before we found one that we could trust. And when we did, he was on our speed dial,
Yeah.
essentially. It was like, hey, can you go do this now?
Yeah.
Right. One thing I would also suggest is to join a landlord or
Yeah. It's great.
I mean,
great.
they have, I think it was, what was it, $50?
It's $40 a year. So we joined the Landlords Association. So you've got all these home landlords. They have monthly meetings, swap stories. Usually ends up drinking
Yeah.
at a bar to finish your stories up. But the knowledge you get out of that is awesome.
Right.
And then
And you
there's
meet
usually
contractors.
you meet contractors. They're all on the newsletter. And one of the things you're always if you're doing rent, sooner or later you're gonna be sending somebody like a 7-day notice, demand for payment or whatever.
Right.
These guys they charged us $25. We've never had to go and evict anybody, but there they are. They don't charge you a lot of money to do it because you're in the failure group.
Gotcha.
That's the name of the association.
Port Huron.
Yeah.
And we've used them, but it was mainly just to demand payment.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get a 7-day letter, they usually your rent shows
That
up.
brings up a question, because we had never had to actually evict anyone, but we did have people that left and really destroyed the property. And so we would go to the magistrate and go through the process, and we would win.
Yeah.
But you couldn't find the person, or they didn't
Can't
have
collect.
the anymore. Yeah. So we never saw the money.
Yeah.
You're just glad that they're gone.
Right.
Exactly.
That's the win there. That's the win there. January, we thought we were going to have to evict somebody out of one of our duplexes. And here's another thing we do. This is good advice. Befriend the neighbors. Befriend the neighbors.
Yeah.
So the neighbor, I call him up and I said, texted him. I said, asked him about the people. And he said, I think they moved out. There was a van here and I haven't seen anybody in the yard. So the real estate agent lived not too far, and we called her up and she drove by and she said, I'm looking in the windows. I don't see any furniture in there. They're gone.
Yeah.
And we were in the process of evicting them.
So
and we didn't have to,
money.
But they still owed us back rent. And then it cost us $4,000 to fix the place up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so they didn't get their security deposit. And I'm like, do I go after them? They're gone.
Yeah.
And
I don't
make
have to deal with
sure,
them anymore.
right, and make sure that you get a hefty security deposit
Well,
because
as much as you can, a lot of
Right.
places.
yeah, I mean, depending on where you're at, but make sure that it's something that you can, replace the carpet and whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's a
Because-
good
and
point.
yeah, and another thing with Fella is the association is that you get discounts at a lot of the stores around
Okay.
because you're a landlord and
Gotcha.
you're
Yeah,
involved.
you're a member.
I mean, and it's like $49.
Yeah, that's absolutely
year?
worth it.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
mean,
Yeah.
come on, that right there. It's paid
only-
back
yeah.
in the carpet.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, that's so smart. I mean, that's a great tip right there. So for anybody who's kind of, new to the industry, search those people out. I mean, I'm sure there's
Yes.
probably,
Yeah.
a quick Google of, hey, landlord association or whatever, because we had one back in our area as well. And
And nowadays with all the social media and all the connections, it's so easy to look and find these people. I mean, when we started,
it was,
social media really wasn't a thing yet.
yeah,
Right.
So it was a little more difficult.
yeah.
It was definitely more, in person,
Yeah.
networking.
We actually learned it
But-
through a landlord when we were actually
Yes.
renting. He told us about it because we said, hey, we want to do what you do, because he's
Right.
like, he was a, guy who just, nicer, older guy, but it was just kind of like, not even that old, but it was his mom had started the business and then it was the
Oh,
son, and it
that's
was just
cool.
kind of like, we want to do that, and he kind of
those connections
introduced us to the association, and we kind of they had, like you said, a newsletter, but it was just like, wow. So that's a great tip. Gosh, that's probably, one of the best things I would say as well, because we were new and, like you said, building trust, okay, here are these new people coming to here. They don't own any properties yet. And I'm like, no, we don't. But,
Exactly.
but we had people trying to sell us stuff, but
Yeah.
like, hey, well, we have this one.
Right.
We have a good starter one for you, and that's kind of forgot about that. I would like to go back. I think I'm a saver, so I probably have those old newsletters back in the day, but so that's awesome. We are super excited to see your channel because, like I said,
I
knowing
love
you
what's out there already.
and just speaking, we just being that we know you guys, you speak real about a lot of this stuff, right? It's not going to be up on stage and we're hey, shouting from the rooftops, this and this. You're in the properties, you're doing it every week, and you're still doing it. Even though you're uber successful with this and have tons of properties, you're still out there doing it every weekend, which I think is part of your success, right? It's that consistency. Getting your brand out there, doing the right thing. So,
And that's what makes you feel good because you're actually helping these people as well, and
yeah,
there are more good people than bad people out there. And
yeah,
every now and then you're just gonna get somebody that is a renter that, the best one that I this is hilarious. I had this one renter that we had, I had to call them every month for the rent. And so I call him and he's like, I'm really sorry, and mind you, they're not married. I'm really sorry, but it was our anniversary and we kind of splurged a little bit. And I'm like, tell that to your bank, right? Could you tell, oh, you know what? I'm not gonna be able to make my car payment today because, we went splurging for our,
you're
it's like,
old wounds.
what do you even say? What do you even say to them? Like,
I know we had
You're
a
actually-
tenant
Yeah.
when we were actually still living in the property about, can I split December's payment and can I be a week or two late because it's Christmas and I won't be able to buy my kids presents? And we're like, well, how do you think that we're gonna then buy our child Christmas presents?
Yeah.
We're depending
Right.
on
Yeah.
your rent.
So
But they could always pay their cell phone bill. They had satellite TV, all these other things. But I'm gonna be late on rent this month.
we didn't do this, but we have a friend and he does the same thing we do. But he usually will, now he mainly focuses on land contracts.
Okay.
So real quick, a land contract is he'll buy the house, and he'll only put like 10 grand into it, just paint it, make sure the carpet's cleaned, anything broken, he'll fix. And then he will sell it on a land contract, which means he's actually holding the mortgage. So he'll take 20,000 down for down payment, and then they make payments for 3 to 5 years, and then they have to buy the house off him. He gets probably 20% of them back. But where I'm going with this guy is the houses he does rent. Here's what he tells his tenants. If you make every one of your payments on the 1st, I'll give you December off.
I like it.
Oh,
That is really smart.
That is smart because
Yeah.
And he said, I never have to call and ask for rent. And to
Wow.
me, that's
as a
worth
Christmas, that's
the
perfect.
$1,000,
Yeah.
whatever it
Right.
is.
Yeah, that's
yeah, we've heard a lot of tips and tricks over there, making sure, tenants pay on time, but that one I've never heard. That's
Yeah.
really kind of genius.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
heard like get 5% if you're on time, things like that. But I like that because December always seemed to be a tough month, right? Because that's the
Right.
Christmas. You just got finished with. It's the holiday season, so yeah, that's really smart.
One thing we did on our lease contracts, we actually reverse engineered them. So let's just say our rent was 1,000. When they go to sign it, it would say $1,100. And they're like, no, wait, you told me 1,000. Read the second line. If you pay the rent by the 5th, you get $100 off.
I
So
like
if you
that.
take that to court,
That is smart.
So,
Plus, it's like
yeah,
it's so like in your head that you're getting this discount too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's really a good incentive, right? Wow, that's another one I have not heard that, so that's good. I like it.
and the last piece of advice I would say, and this is mainly Sue's ballpark here, the second you give your tenant, okay, you can pay on the 10th. The next month, guess when you're getting your rent? The 10th.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then, hey, can I be 2 days late? Now it's the 12th.
then
yeah.
it becomes their anniversary.
Right. Then the next month, all of a sudden, now they just think it's the 12th. The minute you move that line in the sand,
Yeah.
Don't do it.
don't
It's-
do it.
precedent.
You
Yeah.
can't do that.
And it's hard because I'm like, I look at these kids in their, in their 20s. I'm like, God,
She wants to help them.
Come on,
Yeah.
I'm helping you.
But
But
then as soon as she gets strict with them, then they're mad at her.
Yeah.
yeah, then I'm renaming the book. I'm like,
That's
crazy.
But you're doing them when you think about it. We always kind of thought like, listen, if you ever want to get to the point where you want to buy a house,
Right.
you need to have a good rental history of,
Yeah.
but a lot of them don't, that we've seen just didn't think like that. They're at the place and they're living there and,
Yeah.
it was just not the way we kind of grew up. We wanted to be good renters. We took care of the place. And so
You
that
left them better than
we
found it.
left it better than we found
Right.
it. Carpets cleaned, everything, scrubbed down because we wanted the security deposit back to, for our down
Right.
payment on the house, right? Like a little extra when you're
Yeah.
just getting started. So
And it's funny because, we had a couple of really bad tenants. Most of them were okay, but I think we only ever actually gave maybe 2 people their security deposit back because some of
They
them.
just kind of froze up there. Now
There
you're
you
back.
You know what's funny? You can have 50 good tenants, and the ones you always remember are the bad ones.
yeah,
Yes. Yep.
that's
Getting
it.
snotty with you on the phone.
Calling
Oh,
the cops on you.
Or it's funny because like the lease, so we're like, does anyone ever read that thing? Like we read it, our lawyers read it, but I'm like, right here it says no pool. Right here it says no water beds or whatever.
No pets.
Right.
No pit bulls.
No pit
Yeah,
bulls.
no
Oh
pit
yeah.
bulls,
And
like,
then they had
Whatever. I'm just like, apparently not. So we started like,
Mhm.
almost trying to like go over it with them. I know it's crazy, but just like,
that's exactly what I
She
do.
does.
yeah,
I highlight everything
Yeah.
that they need to sign and I read it out loud. Do you have any questions?
right. That's,
And
You kind of have to do
it
that.
feels weird, but it was kind of like you need to set that tone early. Like that's like right
Like
from
I
the
said, set
beginning.
the standard because as soon as you move that line in the sand,
Yeah.
they're gonna keep
yeah,
putting their toes
Yeah.
over it
Yeah.
and see how far
Yeah.
they can push you.
Well, that's so true. But like again, we are psyched for your channel. Like, that's why we wanted to have you guys on here before you really start blowing up the channel and everybody you got so many people calling you. We're like, let's do this early. We want to make sure like Flippin' Views is, we're first to Flippin' Views. So we say, hey, but yeah, so like we're looking forward to it. So do you have like a timeline, a month, 2 months, you guys got to put out like content maybe every other week or, because I'm psyched because I know I'm going to learn a lot. I know nothing about Arizona's real estate. So that's interesting.
oh, it's
Crazy.
crazy.
But just the idea that you're going to walk through the channels, walk through the
The
homes,
houses.
maybe have some meetings with real estate agents and contractors, get their point of view. I mean, what else do you have for us?
Well, so again, you have to build a team. So we have a team in Michigan we're developing a team here. And then one thing I had to do, some of the construction here is different from Michigan.
Oh,
A lot of
okay.
these houses are,
Well, they're built for the desert.
yeah,
Right.
so they've
Yeah,
got
not the
ceramic
snow.
roofs on them.
Okay.
Some of the structures different as far as, most of these houses are on slabs, so you
Okay.
can't look underneath them,
Right.
which isn't a bad thing. Termites out here are a big thing,
Oh, okay.
so you gotta look for that.
Just have to know your market. You have to
Right.
Yeah, it's
just
just,
know
again,
the
you go out,
scorpions.
you look at houses, you meet people. Like last night, we went and watched the Phoenix Suns game, and
Hmm.
we're talking to a guy who owns a pesticide company.
Ah,
And he's like, if you know what you're doing, he doesn't even do his own house. He says, I don't have to. And we use usually, one of the rentals that we do have out here, we have Terminex come out and spray to make sure we don't get stuff in the house.
right.
Yeah, because I mean, it's once you have scorpions coming in your house, you can't walk barefoot again.
That's a mental
It's
thing. You
it's
can't.
like, oh my God. We have stories about that, which we'll share that too on our channel. But we're kind of keeping some of the bloopers. But the first video that we did do, which was a good one, but I didn't know how to work my phone apparently because I was
Oh.
recording when I thought I wasn't recording,
Right.
and I wasn't recording when I was recording. So everything that I recorded wasn't recorded.
Yeah, it was a perfect house because it had a lot of things wrong with it. And I have a
Right.
laser pointer, and I'm walking through the house, and we made this great video, and we get home and it's not there.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, it's one of the agents we knew. It was his listing. So
Right.
he's BSing with us for a little while about some of the properties, and one of them that he knew we just
Which
sold.
would have been a good.
Yeah. And then we didn't have the video.
Boy,
So you're gonna make mistakes too, no
That's-
matter what.
great point. Absolutely. That is so
Yeah.
true. I mean, nothing's perfect. You know, we always talk about taking that imperfect action, and hey, you're going to go out there and you're going to look through other houses and, you know, get the video of those and post those and, you know, kind of let everybody know what they're about. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
Now I
awesome.
know how to use my phone.
And then we looked at another house that was in shambles. They put it on the market. It was on the market for 4 hours. We were standing in the driveway figuring out what we wanted to offer.
Mhm.
And we were going to offer 260,000 all cash. And somebody offered 280 as we're standing in the driveway. 4 hours, boom, gone.
Wow.
And about 12 weeks later, it was on the market for 550.
Wow.
And I'm like, somebody just made a damn killing.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was being slow about was the pool had to be all redone. And we typically don't deal with pools.
Okay.
And there was a lot of rotten wood in the house, and it was termite infested. But still, if you put 200 into it, you still would have done pretty well.
But we didn't know, so we weren't going to. I mean, if you don't know, don't do it because.
And that was just, we're green to the market.
Mhm.
That won't happen a second time now.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point. I think you guys really nailed it. You know, you said it multiple times, know your market, right? Know your
Right.
market. And, you know, that's meeting the people, making those connections. That's understanding the neighborhoods, the schools, the demographics. So I think for all the new viewers out there, you know, that's the first thing, like, you know, do your homework, do your research. Don't shut the
Right.
TV off, right? Don't worry about what they're doing on all these shows.
Yeah.
Tune in to Flippin' Views and watch you guys kind of
Right.
walk through those houses and understand, like, hey, here's what we're looking for. What I'd really like to see, I hope you guys can do this. This is my little request. Maybe
Okay.
when you do a video, do a screen share of what you're looking for and how you do your research. I think that would be super valuable for, like, you know, for anyone getting started, because there's some things you mentioned that I wouldn't have thought of. You mentioned like estates and, you know, are there liens on the property and all that type of stuff. I mean, a lot of people
Right.
probably don't know where to go and search for that. You know, everybody says, oh, go ahead and Google it. But, you know, I know in our state, a lot of these databases, you have to pay for it too. If you want access to
Right.
this, you have, oh, there's an extra expense. I got to pay for this. Or every time you want to pull something on this property, it's, you know, $3.99 for these records. It's like, well, you know, if you're a new person getting started, like those little things start to be a little bit of a pain. You're like, gosh,
Well, a basic deed is public record.
right.
So that they don't charge you for. But when you start getting into the crux of are the taxes paid? Some counties are starting to charge you for that information.
Yeah.
Real Comp is a good source.
And-
You'll know, like if you drive by a house and you notice that it's vacant, you can go on their website, type in the address, and it'll tell you who owns it and their address, or
Real Comp or Realty Track?
a Realty Track. I'm sorry,
Yeah, Realty Track. You do have to subscribe, but that's a great website for doing what we do.
Yes,
Okay.
It'll
I'm
tell
on
you
that.
the mortgage, what they owe, when they got the mortgage, who owns the mortgage.
How
Okay.
long they've had
Yeah.
it.
Right.
It gives you everything. You do have
Everything.
it's a small amount per month,
Okay.
but
Well, that's a good tool. Yeah. If you're going to be in the business, you need to have certain tools. So that's
Our go-to. We went through a lot of them. Since we've been doing this, we've always kept that one.
and you
Okay.
wonder if if they want to sell, you can send them a letter and say, hey, I'm interested.
Right.
Hey, this house has been vacant. You want to sell it?
Yeah, that's right. Because a lot of people, you don't realize they have that motivation. Just no one's reached out to them like, hey, they would love to get rid of that property. But yeah, so you guys are gonna like have so much information and content to put out. I'm super psyched.
I'm
about
excited.
Views. And really, to be honest, like I want to go out to Arizona. Like I would love to go out there.
Come on.
Kind of, maybe when it's cold here, we'll fly out there and you can kind of walk us through a property and kind of we can follow you around and see what you do. And that would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Megan, you weren't that far away from us last week.
I know I was close, but still kind of far. But yeah, no, in Arizona, it's funny because it's one of those states I've always wanted to get to and have not been to.
Yeah.
I know.
It's beautiful. It's
You
just hot.
have to.
I
It's
heard
really hot right
We keep talking about how we want to move in a couple of years and thinking about Texas, but I'm like, maybe Arizona would be nice too.
Yeah.
That's what we're like, Texas, Arizona. But
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Anything else you want to share with our viewers before we wrap it up? Besides know your market.
know your market.
Know your market. Know your market. Make some good contacts. Hardest thing's getting started. Once you get your feet wet, it's only scary in the beginning, but you just have to work your way through it. Once you do that, it really is not a big deal. It's a numbers game. Keep the emotions out of it. If the numbers work, great. If not, move on to the next one. There's plenty of them. You just have to find them.
Yeah.
And all you have to
connections.
Connections.
Yeah.
Connections, know your market, and get into an association.
Awesome.
And befriend some agents and they'll start tipping you. They'll give you tips.
Love it. All right, guys. We are going to have links to their YouTube and Facebook pages in our description below. So make sure you check them out and subscribe to their channel as well. So when they start posting all this awesome information, you can get it firsthand. Thank you for watching today. Make sure you like and subscribe. Leave us some comments if you got some value out of this, or if you have any questions for Sue and Chris. Have a great evening. Keep hustling for your excellence, and we'll see you all soon.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have fun. Have a great day.